Tuesday morning, Bishop on air with you, and appreciate you guys checking in each and every weekday morning. Shout out to those piling into the chat room. We've got Jordan, Chubby Guy Customs Garage, Till Valhalla, Roman, JL, Brian, Jerry, Randall, James, Dave, Tattooed Squirrel, Keith, John, and more. I imagine you guys are going to be talking it up throughout the morning. Always appreciate that. Christopher, John, Captain Mike, all you guys, thank you. Back at it. A couple of segments we'll focus on. We'll talk about the Illinois Prisoner Review Board with a shakeup there and some criticism of Governor J.B. Pritzker's handling of that body. And also we got to talk about the National Shooting Sports Foundation filing a supplemental authority in a case challenging Illinois' firearm industry liability law, especially after Chicago sued Glock last week. So some movement in that case. But starting this morning with just horrifying news. That bridge collapse in Baltimore, unbelievable. And the videos that's coming out of it, I mean, just incredible. Oh my gosh. No good. And there's even video being released of the actual moment that the container ship appears to have lost power and slammed into one of the pillars there for this bridge. Oh my gosh. It did go down quick. Whew. Now this video we're looking at here is a little bit sped up, but yes, the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The Francis Scott Key Bridge. I've got a friend who is afraid of bridges. Like every time we're in the car together and we go over a bridge, I could see him getting anxious. I'm sure this is the thing of nightmares. Look at that. And again, that container ship appears to have lost power. And then you can see the splash. And then the subsequent smashing of the pillar, and it just comes down. Whew. So you've got that with breaking news this morning. It happened at about 12:30 Central Time, I think. At least some of the initial news conference interviews I saw raising that they don't suspect terrorism, but they are all hands on deck trying to find as many people as possible. But a mass casualty event expected there with vehicles in the water and that entire bridge coming down. Just stunning. Absolutely stunning. All right, it is Bishop on air. We've got some things to tackle. Coming back, we will talk about the National Shooting Sports Foundation using Chicago's lawsuit against Glock as ammo to try to shoot down Illinois' firearm industry liability law. So stay tuned. That's coming up here with Bishop on air. Chicago's Glock lawsuits being used as ammo to shoot down Illinois' firearm industry liability law. Welcome in, Bishop on air. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air and go check out more at the website bishoponair.com. So we last week talked about Glock, popular firearms manufacturer, being sued by the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago says that Glock is not doing right by the public to keep them safe by having a product that can be easily modified to turn a semi-automatic firearm into a full auto firearm. The National Shooting Sports Foundation now using that in an effort to try to strike down the law that Chicago's using to sue Glock. So let's get into this, all right? And if you follow me on X, you saw this headline yesterday from thecentersquare.com. But I'll just read from some of this here. It says, the National Shooting Sports Foundation is using the city of Chicago's lawsuit against gunmaker Glock as ammunition in its challenge to Illinois' firearm industry liability law. So some background. Last year, Governor J.B. Pritzker enacted the Firearms Industry Responsibility Act that allows for civil lawsuits against the firearm industry for a variety of things. And those things include, by the way, not just allegedly putting the public at risk of harm, but also for advertising paramilitary type of activities or advertising to children. So essentially, Illinois state law and the law that Governor Pritzker signed last year opens up the firearm industry to all kinds of different lawsuits from multiple directions. The governor at the time, he said the state of Illinois will now be allowed to take legal action against firearm industry players that engage and endanger the public safety and health of the people, he said after citing that law. Now, in August of last year, you had the National Shooting Sports Foundation sue to block the law. The group said that the measure is trying to resurrect the very kind of lawsuits that Protect Lawful Commerce in Arms Act was enacted to eliminate. Goes on to say numerous constitutional provisions prohibit states from regulating conduct that takes place wholly beyond their borders, even when that commerce it affects within the state. And the Due Process Clause prohibits states from punishing one private party for conduct of another. And you might hear a little bit more of this idea of, you had lawsuits, for instance, filed against car manufacturers because people were finding ways to break into those cars instead of going after the criminals in Chicago with the high rates of carjackings and such. One effort was to hold the car manufacturers accountable. But regardless, after various procedural motions in this challenge that the National Shooting Sports Foundation leveled against the state of Illinois over the Firearms Responsibility Act, you had the state motion to dismiss the case. And in that motion, they say that NSSF cannot conjure up standing by listing speculative scenarios for future lawsuits in a brief for a motion for preliminary action, injunction, and then say gotcha when the state does not engage with and disavow every hypothetical. That was on December 11th. Now, last week, again, we hadn't seen the state law be used in the fashion that Cook County announced they're going to use it last week, right? So the laws enacted last summer. National Shooting Sports Foundation, they file suit in September. The lawsuit's going through. The state says nobody's been harmed by this law because there hadn't been any use of it to sue the firearms industry, right? So months go by, months and months and months go by. But then last week, you have the city of Chicago announced that it's using Illinois' law to file a lawsuit in Cook County against Glock, alleging the company allows for its products to be modified with illicit aftermarket parts, turning semi-automatic firearms into full auto. Monday, yesterday, NSSF filed a supplemental authority in federal court pointing to the Glock lawsuit. Now, I chatted with Mark Oliva. He is a spokesman for the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and he lays out what the rationale is behind this supplemental authority and exactly what a supplemental authority means for this case challenging the state's firearm industry liability law.
Yeah, the filing for supplemental authority is to show the court that, in fact, this law is damaging to the firearm industry, and in fact that these laws are forbidden under the federal law, the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. That prevents people from bringing frivolous lawsuits against firearm manufacturers for the crimes committed by remote third parties, or people who have no relation whatsoever to the company. And if you look at what Chicago is bringing against Glock, they're claiming that their firearm is defective because they refuse to change the design of that model because people are using an aftermarket product that is illegal to own and possess, and they're illegally attaching it to firearms to commit a crime. So we're talking about people who are committing crimes to possess these things. committing crimes to put them on, and then go and committing crimes further with those illegal owned and illegal possessed firearms. And this is exactly what the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act says you can't. So the supplemental filing with the Southern District Court is to be able to show them that, in fact, that this law is now damaging one of our member companies, and that the court needs to step in and take a close look at this.
Now, the case originally filed in September. Is the supplemental authority going to speed things up? One of the questions I asked Mark yesterday, and his response.
Yeah, the filing for supplemental authority is to show the court that, in fact, this law is damaging to the firearm industry, and in fact that these laws. Well, we'd hope that it would turn the court's attention that this needs immediate attention. It's a very serious allegation that's being brought, and I think it's important also to understand that this case is not being brought in a vacuum. That we know that the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which is staffed by former Everytown lobbyist Rob Wilcox, had reached out to Glock and told them that they wanted them to change their design. And anyone who's familiar with Glocks understands that Glocks are known for their reliability. In fact, the entire Chicago Police Department uses Glocks as their sidearm. When Glock said that they would not change or alter their design, then interestingly, Everytown for Gun Safety, the gun control group backed by Michael Bloomberg, for whom Mr. Wilcox used to work, backed this lawsuit by the city of Chicago. And then again, this is the same city that also sued automakers because criminals were stealing a certain type of auto. So again, we're seeing a pattern here that the city is going to go after people who are making lawful products, making those without defect, instead of going after the criminals who are preying upon the innocent people in the city of Chicago. And now they're doing this with White House backing. And they're doing this by abusing the law that they have in front of them that they passed to allow themselves to bring these frivolous lawsuits. These types of lawsuits are no different than what was being brought up in the late 1990s and early 2000s, which brought about the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act.
So again, in a conversation I had with Mark Oliva from the National Shooting Sports Foundation yesterday, getting his reaction to that supplemental authority that the NSSF filed in their challenge in Southern District, Illinois, federal court, challenging Illinois' firearm industry liability law and pointing to last week's City of Chicago lawsuit against Glock as authority to say, we got to get this thing done. Look, somebody's already being injured by this law, and it's unconstitutional for a variety of reasons. But what's the impact if this law is allowed to stand?
Again, I don't think that this law is going to be allowed to stand, and even if it does survive, I expect that this would be appealed up to higher authorities, up to the Seventh Circuit, and eventually up to the U.S. Supreme Court. I think it's important to understand as well for your listeners is that this Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act has been upheld by U.S. Courts of Appeal and has actually been defended by Attorney General Merrick Garland as constitutional when he testified before the U.S. Senate. So, again, we're talking about a lawful congressional law that the president has signed, President Bush signed into law, that prevents these frivolous lawsuits. And that's nothing more than just a basic understanding of tort law, that those who commit crimes and commit harm through those crimes are responsible for those crimes, not the people who make a product that is lawful to own. These products, in this case the Glock handgun, is made without defect. It is particularly known for its reliability, and they're going after Glock, trying to say that they're making a product that is too easily modified, that criminals could misuse it, instead of going after the criminals that are misusing the lawful product.
So thanks to Mark for taking time with me yesterday to talk about the lawsuit out of Chicago and the impacts on Glock, and also the constitutionality and the trajectory of the case challenging Illinois' firearm industry liability law. So there will be more that we have to take on all of this, especially as both of those cases proceed. The case in Cook County Circuit Court that Chicago brought against Glock last week, we'll do what we can to track that, but also we'll continue to track the lawsuit that the National Shooting Sports Foundation has brought against the state's firearm industry liability law. So a lot going on there. And keep it with Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join me each and every weekday morning here with Bishop on Air as we break down stuff that, I think you probably need to know to start your day each and every weekday morning. So appreciate you guys. All right, stay tuned. More to come here with Bishop on Air. Illinois Prisoner Review Board. It's a board made up of people appointed by the governor, approved by the Senate, and they review cases of parole and indicate whether or not that individual is eligible for such, and they also monitor those types of individuals as well. But a shakeup at the Illinois Prisoner Review Board that was announced yesterday in two different scenarios here. One, earlier in the morning, you had the governor announce the resignation of a board member, and then later in the evening, you had the governor announce the resignation of the chair of the Illinois Prisoner Review Board, both individuals making around $90,000 a year. So let's get right on into this and some reaction. I'm Greg Bishop with Bishop on Air, each and every weekday morning here with you. Appreciate you guys being here. So yesterday, as the story was coming in, the chair and a separate member of the Illinois Prisoner Review Board have resigned following the recent parole of a man who's now charged with stabbing a mother and her son. The following day, the 11-year-old boy died in that attack. So Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday, he released this statement. We'll just go ahead and read the statement in full for you, so you can get a general sense of what's going on here. So it says, Governor J.B. Pritzker announced the resignation of Prisoner Review Board member Leanne Miller. Miller conducted the recent Crossetti Brand hearing and prepared a draft order provided to a panel of 2 additional members for concurrence as per PRB procedure. The governor said, quote, the Prisoner Review Board must be able to operate independently as they review enormously difficult cases, but I believe Leanne Miller has made the correct decision in stepping down from her role. He goes on to say, it's clear that evidence in this case was not given the careful consideration that victims of domestic violence deserve, and I'm committed to ensuring additional safeguards and training are in place to prevent tragedies like this from happening again. My thoughts are with Taria Smith as she recovers, and with the family of Jaden Perkins as we mourn his tragic loss. May his memory be a blessing. Governor Pritzker asked the PRB to engage experts and advocates to design and implement expanded training for PRB members related to handling violent crime cases, domestic violent cases. The governor has also directed the PRB and the Illinois Department of Corrections to review the current rules and procedures for receiving information related to cases involving domestic violence to determine whether changes are necessary. As the administration continues to review the facts in this case, it may pursue any broader statutory or policy changes needed to strengthen the PRB's review of similar cases moving forward. The PRB is an independent, bipartisan body comprised of members appointed by the governor. Governor Pritzker will announce appointments to fill current PRB vacancies throughout search. So you've got the governor releasing that statement, and that was the initial statement released, but you got CBS 2 Chicago giving more detail that the Prisoner Review Board was never notified that a pregnant Chicago woman was seeking an order of protection against Crossetti Brand, who was her ex-boyfriend. And then later on in the day, you had the governor release another statement, and this one about Donald Shelton, who was the Prisoner Review Board chair. And the governor just simply saying that Donald Shelton served the state of Illinois in his role with the PRB for over a decade, providing a model of dedication to public service. So interesting to see some of those statements from the governor, but you also have Republicans reacting. Senate's minority leader, John Curran, he said in a statement, sadly, it's clear the serious reforms that we have been calling for at the Prisoner Review Board are needed now more than ever. This is another example of Governor Pritzker's failing to oversee an agency under his control. His attention should be focused on the life and death matters of our states. So clearly you're going to hear more about this, especially as we saw several years ago. The governor had several vacancies on the PRB. People who were on the Prisoner Review Board, Republicans saw as problematic for various statements that they've made or different decisions that they made concerning parole for individuals. But this story is already making national headlines. With Governor J.B. Pritzker, not even in Illinois right now, by the way. He's traveled over to California for a mission to try to attract more business to Illinois, more film industry business to Illinois. So interesting to see what he has to say when he comes back, especially when legislators come back next week Are they going to have more to say about this and the overall problems they've had in the past with the Prisoner Review Board? Vacancies on the board, how those individuals, for instance, one of the things I think, if I recall in my memory bank, what was problematic with the Prisoner Review Board was the governor would announce a Prisoner Review Board member, and then the Senate would never take it up. And this was during COVID. So the Senate wouldn't take up that appointment. The appointment would expire, and the governor would just reappoint the same person to where you never really had a hearing about that person and so on. So there's been a lot of things that have been problematic with the Prisoner Review Board under the Pritzker administration. I imagine we're going to hear plenty about that and more. All right, it is Bishop on Air. You want to stay up on that? Follow me on X, search Bishop on Air, and check out thecentersquare.com each and every day. All right, fresh stories about what's going on in Illinois. So the front page there, you get a good sense, just some of the headlines. Parents suing Chicago Teachers Union over COVID-19 strikes. Illinois legislators want to strengthen child labor laws amid the migrant crisis. Chicago's Glock case used as ammo to shoot down Illinois' industry liability law. Chicago aldermen call for united fronts in calming violent crime. Legislation would allow third-party software for parents to monitor children online and more. So go check out thecentersquare.com/Illinois. But also check out the national site as well, with plenty of stories there from not just Illinois, not just Washington, D.C., but all across the United States. All right, so check that out. Appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning with Bishop on Air. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all right? We'll see you back here sooner than later with more from Bishop on Air. Guys, seriously, want to appreciate you each and every day tuning in and checking out the program. Be sure to like, subscribe, but also share it with your friends. Let them know about what we do here each and every morning. The legislature's been off this week. All right, they come back next week, and I think the Senate's actually off the following week as well. So regardless, not a lot of legislative action, but I tell you what, when they do come back, it's going to be pedal to the metal with tons of stuff going on, and we'll do what we can to keep you updated. Shout out to some of those in the chat room. Nick, appreciate that. Great show, he says. Warsaw, appreciate you as well. Warbot 3000. You've got Jeremy, Carla, good for checking in. Cordell 777, Keith, Patrick, Special K. You guys are awesome. Mr. Sneed, be sure to tell the family I said what's up, and so many more. Appreciate you guys, really do. I don't think I could say that enough. Randall, segments, or that's it. Ford Boss Me covered the committee meetings downtown. All right. Hello all. Later on. Treston, appreciate you. All right, guys. Colin, what up? Dr. Frank. Boss 10 Tea Party. All right. Just looking at some of the comments here. Good stuff. By the way, yesterday, let me see if I can find this really quick. I got to search around a bit, but interesting comment on a video yesterday. Maybe just a brief segment here. This is just for the live audience. I'm not going to bust this out into another segment, but let me see if I can find this really quick. It was it was about the lawsuit concerning the FOID card and illegal immigrants. Let me see if I can pull up this comment. Okay, yeah, I'm literally going through and going to try to grab this for you guys so I can check this out with you. Let me pull this up because I thought it was somewhat insightful. All right, so we'll go and check out the comments. Where are we at here? No, wasn't that one. Scroll down. Okay, I think it was this one. Let me see. No, I don't think it was that one. Let me keep going. Keep going. Oh, here it was. Okay, yeah, it was. That's the name. Stoned Dead 1981. All right, I think this is an important comment, and I don't necessarily highlight comments too much, but I thought this one was interesting. It says, I believe that all people in the U.S. possess inalienable rights that are described in the Constitution, including the Second Amendment. All right, and again, this was in reference to the conversation about the federal judge who said that a undocumented migrant in Illinois who was in possession of a firearm, the prohibition of illegal aliens having firearms is unconstitutional per the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin decision from 2022. So, essentially saying that, hey, this undocumented migrant also has a right to protect themselves. All right, so that was essentially the ruling. Republicans say, hey, that ruling is extreme, but at the same time, they say it also highlights how the FOID card is unconstitutional. But anyways, some people said, hey, constitutional rights don't apply to undocumented migrants or illegal immigrants. Constitutional rights are only for the citizens. Well, I think this comment from Stone Dead 1981 is interesting, and I want to, again, just read the entire thing for you. Okay, so it says, I believe that all people in the U.S. possess inalienable rights that are described in the Constitution, including the Second Amendment. The Constitution differentiates between citizens and the people. The citizens portion are exclusively talking about who may participate in government. All right, that's interesting. I want to repeat that. The citizen portion exclusively talking about who may participate in our government. Everything else pertains to the people, which is every human in the country, regardless of citizenship. This is what makes partisan politics in the judicial system so egregious, and why the border needs to be controlled per current federal law. To deny constitutional rights to foreigners is evil, this commenter says. It would take away due process, which opens them to abuse and exploitation, both by the government and by the people. They would have no option for recourse to this exploitation or abuse. No one would ever come here if they were denied these rights, not legal immigrants, nor even foreigners on vacation. Frankly, they could be murdered and no one would be able to be prosecuted, as they would have no standing in court, no rights at all. That would be wrong and unconstitutional. I believe the ruling by this judge is correct, the commenter said, and should be applied across the U.S. The FOID and CCW are unconstitutional, the commenter says. All citizens should enjoy these rights as well as foreigners in this country. So again, I wanted to highlight that because, I mean, that's, a pretty deep conversation to have, the difference between, the Bill of Rights and the rights that are afforded to the people versus the rights that are afforded to citizens, right? Citizens, naturalized citizens, even you guys get, the right to vote and the right to run for certain offices. But the people, the 17-year-old, or I guess a 17-year-old can vote in certain circumstances. But in Illinois, a 12-year-old doesn't have the right to vote, but it's still a person who has rights. So I think that's another way you could look at it. But either way, I just wanted to throw that out there. Take just a brief moment here. A little bit of an extra bit for you here with Bishop on Air. Got to get out of here. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. And like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, all right? Peace out, guys.